We good? Good evening, welcome everybody. First thing on the agenda, public hearing, for the proposed annexation, December 11th, 2018. It is 7:02 p.m. officially. Call to order, please. Roll call.
Jack Boddicker.
Here.
Gary Holbert.
Here.
Mark Tucker.
Here.
Dan Wandersee.
Here.
James Bullen.
Here.
All accounted for.
New business in this hearing is the proposed annexation up north of town here. I'll first ask the building inspector to give a couple comments maybe, and then we'll go with questions from the crowd. I might add that there was a little list that came around, make sure everybody gets it signed.
Right.
Council members, did you get a chance to sign that, Mark? So when it's done, yes, please pass it up.
This annexation is about the first step in securing our northeast quadrant. We have 4 parcels that we're annexing here. The landowners requested this as a voluntary annexation. They wish to become part of the town and protect their properties within the corporate boundaries of the town. For a long time, the town, since we moved forward, working our way out to the interstate, which we've done, that this northeast quadrant needs to be fulfilled, brought into the town. It gives the town new areas for growth in the future, to secure this area for the future of the town, and to protect the tax base of Center Township school system and Centerville school system. Any questions?
Board, any questions from the building inspector? Any questions or comments from the community attending? I would like to start with the front row. I do ask if you have a question or comment, please stand up, state your name, and provide your question or your comments. Anybody in the front row? Second row? Third row? Fourth row? Back of the room, last row? Please stand up and state your name and your address, please.
Ada Dara, 314 East School Street. What's it gonna cost us?
There's no real cost except for the cost that the town and plan commission with the surveys and so forth. This brings this into the town's tax base, this area.
How much have we spent so far on that?
We've spent less than $5,000 so far with all the surveys and the legals and so forth. We had to hire private consultants, legal representation.
And I might add, that's a one-time fee, and then we're getting ready to talk about the physical plan, which will be no cost to us, and there's some waiver things that are legal there. Am I correct?
Yeah, the purpose of tonight's public hearing is to take public comment, and it is required that you hold the public hearing prior to considering your adoption of those fiscal plans. Fiscal plans were prepared by Wabash Scientific, and because these are super voluntary annexations, your property owners have had input on that fiscal plan, and the fiscal plans that you presuming you adopt them, indicate that there's not going to be any, the cost of the extension of services is going to be borne by the property owners at the time of development, basically. I don't want to substitute my own judgment for that of Wabash Scientific. I don't think I'm qualified to necessarily speak to that, but that essentially goes to this question of cost, I think.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Council?
No comment.
With no further comments or questions, I ask for a motion to close this public hearing. Motion by Dan, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Official close time 7:07. Before we start this council meeting, I'd like for everybody to bow their head and let's have a short prayer. Dear Lord, we come before Thee, asking just for your guidance and your leader on our township and our communities. We thanks for everything that we have. Blessed holidays for all those in the communities in our country. But most of all, look over the people that serve our communities and our countries, service members, police officers, volunteer firemen, EMTs. Keep them underworked and safe and home with their families for the holiday season. Amen. Open tonight's council meeting, December 11th, 2018. Official start time, 7:08 p.m. Roll call, please.
Jack Botter.
Here.
Gary Holbert.
Here.
Dan Wondersen.
Here.
James Bullen.
Here.
Mark Tucker.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. First item of business, approve the minutes. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes from Tuesday, November 13, 2018 council meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Motion by Gary. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Dan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, so carried. Looking for a motion to approve the public hearing on the stormwater rate increase. December 14th, 2018 was held at 7 p.m. here in Town Council Chambers. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
December 4th.
The 4th, that's my bad.
Aye, so moved.
Motion by Mark, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Gary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, so carried. Third and final minute approval with the work session, Tuesday, December 4th at 7:15 p.m. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes on the work session?
So moved.
Motion by Gary, do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Dan. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention, so carried. Next item, line of business, approve the claims. I've looked over town general and everything seems in order. Street department,
In order.
water and fire,
Yes.
wastewater and stormwater, electric.
Yes.
Entertain a motion to approve the claims.
Approve the claims, I make that motion.
Motion by Gary, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Next line of business, approve the billing adjustment. I entertain a motion to approve the billing adjustments, 2 pages, amount of $648.82. Do I hear a motion to approve the bill adjustments? Motion by Dan, do I hear a second? Second by James. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. On our first old business that we'll bring out will be CYL update. Johnny Barrett is no longer the president of that. Joseph Jennings is here tonight. I'm gonna ask him to stand up. He's provided some financials for us to kind of give us the fill in. And with that, then I'll make a couple comments after that. Joe?
Okay, I'm Joe Jennings. I'm the new president of CYL Centerville Youth League. Brought Christy Larson, which is our financial secretary, and Tim Jackson, which is my vice president of the youth league. We have provided, so when I took over, I was told that we had to sign a new lease on the property at CYL. I reached out to Jack. Jack filled me in. There was a little bit more to it. He asked me to provide some input or some financials. What you can see is a very simple output of income, and you can see that we're pretty much broke. We don't have a lot of money. We have, we're going to try to cut more costs this year. We cut a lot of costs last year throughout the league, but we had a lot of things that are needing repaired. Still going to need those repairs. We need electrical work inside the concession stand. Some of the roofs on top of the dugouts are rotting out, the wood. So, you see it what it is. We're going to be putting out more money this year. So,
Joe, I looked at that, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, so I will forward that on after this meeting to the council members and the clerk and the legal. And then the legal will get together in the next coming month or so and get a new lease drawn up. Do you have a January meeting date time that you guys are meeting?
we meet January
7th, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay.
Yeah,
We
January
meet
7th.
the 8th, yeah, so that's kind of a, but by the 8th, we'll hopefully have legal start to make sure that where we're headed with this. Just let the public know, we incur costs for the water, wastewater, and the electric down there. That's one of the public entities that we absorb money for that. My feeling is that I hope we can still continue to do that with the lease and keep our youth in our Centerville area involved in good youth programs such as what you guys have provided for many years. Providing that you get back financially on your feet and get things situated, then maybe you can help the town incur some of those costs, and we can work together on future involvement in other programs of the Centerville Youth League and the town of Centerville. Any comments or questions, James? Gary? Dan? Mark? Legal?
Yes. The lease has been drafted, as you know, probably over a year and a half ago now. And so much time has passed that I'm not certain whether you folks have accepted the terms, the contractual terms of the lease, which would just deal simply with essentially the quiet use of possession, indemnification. The parts of the lease, the few parts of the lease that have not been completed were, for lack of a better term, blank lines dealing with rent and dealing with payment of utilities, which is strictly a financial matter. I don't know that there's much more work that needs to be done on the lease as much as we need to sit down and you folks as a policy matter, as a fiscal matter, need to decide what amount of rent, if any, are you charging, because you do have a lot of flexibility under the statute in terms of rental of property to a not-for-profit entity. And then there's the question of the utilities, and indeed, just like your park, just like this building, when the town has property and runs and operates that property in municipal capacity, it is responsible for its own utility bills. We pay a bill for the lights we're using right now. And it would likely be the same for the facilities that the town owns, because as you know, the ball diamond is split into two basic areas. One is owned by the Youth League, there's some diamonds there. The other is owned by the town. I don't know that I'm fully prepared without maybe talking to Gene or Kevin of understanding exactly what utilities the town is servicing and what maybe are contained within CYL's property. So as far as the town, through its park program, paying the utilities for its property, I think that's fine, Jack. I think that's probably something to continue, but that's gotta be your decision. It'd be a different story for the utilities that are used or the service provided, I think, to the CYL's property. Because currently the town, amongst all its municipal utilities, has across-the-board scheduled rates. We don't have a separate scheduled rates for not-for-profits. So,
Do you want me to re-upload the lease?
If you would, and then we'll take that up for matter and more discussion in the January first year meeting. Council members okay with that? Okay. So we'll table that forward. Thanks for coming. We'll keep in contact. All 5 members, here, you're more than welcome to get a hold of, I'm sure, or come up to the clerk's office and she can give you that. You got any other comments or questions?
I would like to add one thing. We are in current talks with the rest of the board about increasing rates as far as to the parents. We're already at $45 per kid and $100 in fundraising. So we're at the top. So to increase those rates more, we're struggling with that. We don't want to turn away a kid. That's our goal. We're here for the kids,
And I don't know where that stands with like groups like Evening Optimists of Richmond or other groups around the community, and we wish you the best with trying to get that to a stature where it'll help you out as a community servant. Okay, thank
Can I
you.
make a comment?
Yes, that's
You
good.
said I'm Christy Larson, I'm the financial secretary for the youth league. In regards to the electric, it's really bad. And I think that if we can find a way to work together, and I'm just putting out there for you guys to think about, to update it, and maybe, I've looked into veteran rebates, or to rebates through IMPA. And, there's not a whole lot out there, but the fire department was out there, and it's a little scary when they look there and say they can't believe we haven't had a fire. Our electric is horrible. And that's probably what's driving up the cost to the town, is because it is so outdated. So that's something we've been working on. We wanted to let you know that we are trying to get pricing and what we can do to lower the electrical costs that are being sucked down by the youth league between that April and August timeframe that we use the most of the electricity. So I just wanted to put it out there that we are trying to come up with avenues to reduce the cost so that you guys don't incur so much, and when we work something out to move it to the youth league, then it's not gonna be detrimental to our youth, and that our parents don't start pulling them and taking them somewhere else, because every time we raise our rates, we lose a few kids to the other communities that don't charge as much. So,
Is that inside the building?
yeah, there's actually 2 electrical boxes. There's one inside the concession side of that building, and then there's one where the diamond lights are controlled from, and that's the box the whole box is rotted, because the water runs down the lines into that room, and it's just rotted the box out. Like I said, it is actually very, very scary. Every time I go in that room to turn those lights on, it terrifies me.
Is that in the same building that the concession stands in?
Yes, all the electrical is housed in that one area, and they're almost back to back. And we did have it fixed within the concession stand within the last 5 years. I've been on and off the board since 2012. So we did have some updates put within the concession stand that helped us. But like I said, I know a lot of that electrical draw is from the diamond lights, which are controlled by the other electrical box inside that building. But yeah, it is just scary.
With a new year and council, maybe we can take a look at some things. You got any ideas down at that end, Mark?
Excuse me?
You got any ideas down at that end?
Well, we were just talking, if we could, one of the cost savings would be if we could shift to LED lights, the power that we'd be using is less, but there would be a cost involved.
Right, yeah, because the current lights on the top of the poles for the diamonds, we can't just change the light bulb.
Right.
We have to change the whole fixture, which we had a company come out and give us a very salty, I about threw up when I saw it, to be honest with you, and he's offered to do some value in engineering, but off the top, what, all the, everything that we would need, it was $500,000, which obviously CYL cannot afford to do that, even with additional outside fundraisers from our kids, donations. But like I said, we are trying to do what we can to bring in some more funds to change it, and of course, like I said, it's must-go lighting, which they do a lot of the stadiums and stuff, and he offered to value engineer it, and I brought it to the board at our last meeting, and we discussed it, and it will be readdressed at the next meeting, so we are working to try and lower that electrical cost, so, and we've replaced all the toilets in the last couple of years, so hopefully that helps with some of the water, with the toilets just running, and we have a couple of issues that we're gonna have a plumber look at in the spring when you guys turn the water back on. So, I said, we're trying, so, I just wanna let you know, we're not just waiting for you guys to do something, we as a board are trying to do what we can to also help the town.
And thanks for your comments. I might add to the people of the community and outreaching with WCTV that any help that can help community services like this helps the kids, and we'll ask our town manager to, as spring rolls around, if there's anything that we can help do as far as maybe some donated labor or something, or let the council look and see where we at on the financials when we make the new lease and get everything finalized in the first year. Yes.
Can I say one more thing? I just wanna let everybody know that CYL, last year we had 335 kids participate in that program. So that's a huge, amount of kids that depend on this program as well, so. We wanna continue to grow that and make it the best around like it is right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Nothing else, we'll move on. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Lawson.
What is the cost for the electric and the water and storm sewer?
I actually,
3,000.
well, I looked at it on a 3-year average, and for the average of the 12 months between water and electric, we're sitting at about $6,800 a year.
I was gonna say close to 7
Yeah.
total. And any efficiency things we can do, or donations we can get, or, anything that's gonna help, we're looking for an answer, whether that be LED lighting, or auto shut-offs, or, motion detectors, or something like that, so. Anything else, gentlemen? No? Thank you. Next on the item of business, trash ordering discussion.
Yes, you'd asked for a timetable, and I put one together here.
Thank you.
I would suggest that, since I got the first date wrong, you might look at the column marked date and just presume it's blank. But all kidding aside, you might presume it's blank because I chose these dates arbitrarily.
Based on backing up from.
Right. The reason I chose the 26th, whereas now the 27th, was that's the next council meeting from tonight's date. And you see the first item that needs to be accomplished then would be to complete, and I think largely it is completed, but then adopt the rate study. How many iterations of the rate study we've had and what you're about to settle on, I don't know. That's your choice. But that would need to be accomplished first in the form of a motion or resolution. Then we would introduce the rate ordinance, which was drafted, I believe, 2 months ago, or, time flies. Largely, it requires input, I think, from all aspects of the town, most importantly from the board, in terms of the rates that you wish to set, and the class of rates you wish to set. But we also thought that largely it would wash through Mr. Slick's office so that he could look at the standards of service set there. We've had quite a bit of discussion about that. And this was essentially my stab to set out something that would closely match at least the contracts, the bids that you were exploring at the time. In other words, the standards really kind of followed the way that the possible vendors were going to run the operation. So from this point forward, you could certainly look at those and start from the ground up. You wouldn't hurt my feelings, but that's something for Mr. Slick to look at, to say, is this how he intends to manage the employees and to run that part of the town's operations? You need input, I think, from the clerk treasurer as well, because I left some room in there to discuss when does the billing start? What are we gonna do about bounce checks? What are we gonna do about penalties and interest? Things of that nature. So, really, those things could be considered minor tweaks, but they are, I think, questions of some significance. Of course, you could look at this and strip out the portions that deal with standards of service, because we do have an ordinance on the books right now that deals with standards of service. I think it was updated, someone has to help me on this, maybe 2015. 2015, was it? Okay. And I think that was a combination of the clerk treasurer, the town manager, and one of the board members at the time drafted that ordinance. If you were to strip those standards of service out, what you're really looking at is just to leave the billing portion of this statute, the rate and the billing portion in place. That would just be a pure rate statute. The two standards that mirror one another are the charges that would normally be part of your sewage works for the collection and disposal of waste. And then, of course, the separate statute on creating a solid waste collection and disposal department or facility. Now, here you're foregoing the facility, of course. This is merely collection and disposal through landfilling. But there is a separate authority for rate statute in there as well. That would be necessary if you were going to be, quote, farming it out. The two statutes essentially mirror one another, so the process is quite the same, but it'll seem most familiar to you as when you go through a sewer rate increase. We begin by mailing notice to the customers of the sewage utility who are outside of your corporate boundaries, and there's a few of those, very few. You would also then have to publish notice of your proposed schedule of rates in the paper at least 10 days before you hold then a public hearing. After you've held that public hearing, after the introduction of the ordinance and the holding of the public hearing, you would then be able to adopt your rate. There is a 5-day objection period, again only relating to the component of the sewer utility. That objection, it wouldn't seem that objection quite fits, but because you're not going to be providing, that objection period actually could apply to people in town, but it's also, I think, predominantly there for the people who are outside your corporate boundaries, and I don't believe you're going to be providing trash service outside your corporate boundaries, so. But in any event, after you've adopted the ordinance, there's a 5-day period within which interested parties can object to the rate. Assuming that no one objects, then your rate becomes effective. So everything was based off the 26th here, but when you get to January 22nd, that figure actually is fairly accurate, and that would be probably the soonest you could actually have your rates effective. Just in talking to the clerk quickly before the meeting, I think we need to consider, does that rate become effective on some sort of practical billing schedule, such as the rates are effective on February 1 to be billed March 1, rather than having some sort of prorated utility rate there. But you certainly could prorate from January to February 1. That just would make for an odd bill. January 14th would be the first Monday after your regular meeting in January. So we would be looking at a special session there in terms of public hearing and in terms of then considering the second reading or even third reading and adoption. So that's a lot of hot air just to say I would consider this column blank, and you may want to sit down and figure out what dates fit.
Short of the 27th on the first three items, correct?
Right, I mean, if you stick with the 27th, then everything that follows afterwards is,
Should be close, depending
Yeah.
on,
if not spot on. For instance, the 28th is the Friday following that hearing, and that's the first, and I presume that, you know, if you have your meeting on a Thursday night, you're giving the direction to the treasurer the very next day to mail out the notices and contact the papers and try to get into the Palladium item and the Western Wayne News right after the New Year's holiday, which I think is on Tuesday. So, little tight window there, I think, in terms of public notice. But you can see that that translates into, again, having to have a special meeting at that point anyway.
comments, Dan? Mark?
No, I've looked through the proposed, ordinance. And, there's a little bit that needs to be changed, but not much, so.
Okay, could you suggest those and? maybe-
Yeah, I'll put this together and email all you guys, so.
Thank you. James?
Well, I have a question. You know, we got a rate increase study for residents. It comes to my attention, we have 50 dumpsters out there, picked up 8 times a month. What are we charging? Is there gonna be an increase in that?
Correct.
The rate
Correct.
study
Yeah,
has
rate
it for the
study
includes
residents as
that.
well as the commercial. It's on that same rate study.
It's in there too, isn't it?
There's nothing in here.
No, that's
Yeah,
just the
that's
ordinance,
one of the
that's
things
not
we
the
need to
rate
add to
study
it.
or.
Yeah, that's the
Okay,
biggie.
We hadn't adopted the rate study yet, or approved the
correct.
rate study.
Okay, I guess my question is, we pick up the residents 4 times a month, but businesses, we pick up 8 times a month. Am I right on that?
Not all of them,
Dumpsters picked
no.
up twice a week?
Not all, no.
Okay.
Questions, comments?
But that is something, if you wanna make sure that's noted in there verbiage wise, that if it's more than the standard once a week pickup, then an additional charge is added for that however many times. I mean, that's something that's,
And
Well,
I,
that was gonna be my comment, you know, I might be speaking out of turn because it's been a while since I reviewed the rate study, but that should be, as they say, baked into the rate. If you're gonna have a monthly rate, then looking at, among other things, the cost of operation of, say, having 8 pickups for a business as opposed to 4 pickups, that should be translated into your average monthly cost. And extra pickups might be when they say, we want a 9th pickup, or I want you to pick up my refrigerator, or whatever it may be.
Which we don't do anymore.
Well, you haven't,
but we need to change
Yeah.
the ordinance because the ordinance
This
actually says.
doesn't exclude that. Yeah. And are those some of the things
yeah, I
you're gonna
expected a red
suggest?
pen to come out.
Right, yeah.
Okay, those are things you're gonna
And
suggest.
then as far as the additional pickups, I think that's what is $14, I want to say,
Could be.
from the 2004-12
Yeah. that's the
resolution.
only thing I can
Yeah,
figure
that's the
in.
only thing we can figure is that,
Which that one was not even put in the form.
yeah, we haven't done it, so.
Yeah,
Find that on some pages, James.
And that's the rate study that originally came out from Humboldt. So with this, I ask that, and agreements with the rest of the council, that, we go through these first line items on the 27th, which are complete and adopt the rate study, introduce the rate ordinance, and schedule a public hearing. Are we all agreeable with that? Okay.
Well, then I would ask, please get your comments back to me on this ordinance
Right.
before then, so I can work with the clerk to get it in a
Let's
I should
everybody
have
try to get
these
back
out
together,
for
form to introduce.
make sure he has that before, what would give you a good timeline there? There's,
The sooner the better.
with the holiday, let's say sometime
24
be-
sometime?
before Christmas.
Tonight before
I'll
we
just
go.
take them as they come, just make sure you
Okay.
get them back to me.
Thank you. That's where we'll go with that. Nothing else, we'll move forward. No. salt building, we're gonna move that to the spring. We've gotta go through some hoops and red tapes and find the places and the money for that. So we'll continue that on our old business until then. Next one is, the ordinance, 2018-15 was in first reading. And along with that,
Yeah, if I may.
yes, go right ahead, sir.
Just to remind you that you did introduce the ordinance in first reading, it is on second reading. You've now held your public hearing tonight, and what follows that public hearing, and I don't see it on the agenda. Oh, okay, is the resolution
Yeah,
adopting fiscal
and I'm
plans.
going to, we're gonna go ahead and hit that first before we do second reading, is that
Correct, and that's my point, you cannot proceed to adoption of the annexation ordinance until at least 14 days have passed from tonight.
Okay.
The landowners still have 13 days within which to withdraw the petition.
Okay. So, as legal stated, I have a resolution here, and we're looking to adopt this resolution 2018-12 and read by title only after adoption. And it's adopting the physical plan and defined policies for the annexation 2018-15. So, could I entertain a motion to adopt?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Dan, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mark, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention. Resolution 2018-12, a resolution of the town council of the town of Centerville, Wayne County, Indiana, to adopt written physical plans and define the policies for the annexation of territory and ordinance number 2018-15. Thank you. I'll send that around for signatures here in just a second. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion on ordinance 2018-15 for second reading and read by title only. Do I hear a motion?
I move.
Motion by Mark, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Gary, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, so carried. Ordinance 2018-15, an ordinance to annexation of certain territories to the town of Centerville, Wayne County, Indiana, placing the same within the corporation boundaries, therefore, and making the same part of the town of Centerville. Board, any other questions or comments on that? I know three of us sit on the planning commission, so. Next in line, we got here on there that we will not move forward with this second reading yet. We're waiting on some more information on whether that's acquiring that property or not. So let's move this forward along with the third reading of 2018-15. I didn't mention that, to the meeting on the 27th, please. Thank you. Last time in work session, we had a lot of information on the phosphorus and testing information. Do I see anybody other than Donnie here? Oh, there he is. How you doing, Mr. Loveman?
Okay,
You got any other things you wanna add before then?
just, I talked with Water Solutions today, and they're gonna come in on, January the 6th to start doing jar testing for us, to, do an analysis on our wastewater to see, how much chemical we'll need. They're gonna try several different ones, and, this cost is free to us. So, that's where we stand with it right now.
Anybody else got any questions on that? James? Gary?
Nope.
Mark?
No.
Dan? I actually do. I know there was some bid numbers thrown around, and then we'll still have some of them bid numbers available after this free testing as well.
Yeah, once we get the testing in and we get some numbers from them of what it will cost us chemically to treat it, we'll bring it back to the council and see how we wanna move forward, if we wanna, go with an engineering firm to, you know, we just need to find out first how much chemical we're gonna have to have.
Another engineering firm, because we've already had one, correct?
Right, well, if we go with another one, what we really need to do is send out some RFQs, which is,
Okay.
request for qualifications and
Okay,
to see, and, but that's where we're at with that right now.
okay, so we can bring some more information back to the council meeting on January 8th?
Yes, should be able to, and,
I mean,
also,
if that's too short of a timeline, you want,
I'll have to see from them how quick, the results can come back on the test. But I did wanna tell council that, our schedule of, compliance schedule for our phosphorus will not start till April 1st of 2019, and from that date, we have 36 months. So
which we're working with IDEM, and that's a acceptable time rate, correct?
Yeah, we've got plenty of time right now.
Okay. Okay, any other comments or questions from you or Donnie?
I don't have any, no.
I just wanna say, we completed our biomonitoring, Donnie did this past week. We should have those results in, probably within a few days. And that, once we get that to IDEM, our public notice, for our MPDS permit will be sent out by IDEM, for public, comment, probably within the next couple of days. Our testing for our nutrients on our land application permit was completed. And we are Class B, just as we have been. Those results I will send into IDEM for that. And then basically, our SCADA project's in motion. We should be receiving an invoice from, George, Booth for that, so we can make a payment. We plan on having that done in 3 different payments, one this year and then 2 in 2019. So we can get that project moving also.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
That'll be number 6. Number 7, 2019 salary ordinance discussion. I think the first thing I brought up was, in ordinance, the president's, one of the duties of the president was to name those department heads and not label those on that ordinance, and they were to be removed. Revise it, yeah. And there was some other revisions, that were brought up, and we were gonna forward that discussion along with everybody else. Gary, you brought up one of those, so.
I'd like to see the, grant and administration part totally taken off. That might give us some flexibility as far as, future raises right at the moment.
Okay,
I have a comment on it.
Sure.
go right ahead.
I think that's $5,100. I think a better place to look is the savings we got from, actually, instead of insuring our employee that is eligible for Medicare, just by paying their supplemental insurance, we're gonna save over $17,000. And we can use that towards,
That'd be a form of discrimination.
what?
We're not paying their supplemental.
No, I'm saying we are paying their supplemental. And
You're gonna take
last
that
year,
away.
no. Last year, we paid $18,000 towards their insurance. And this year, if we're paying the supplemental, it's only gonna be $2,400. So we're saving the difference.
But that's actually already spoken for, is that not
No.
correct?
See, last year we paid $19,600 of the health care for that employee. This year, we're only gonna spend $2,400, which leaves a balance of about 17.2 that can be applied towards.
Comments, questions more on that? Input, output?
I still think that needs to come out of there. Because we're already paying the grant administrator with Kenna whenever we do grants.
I like the sound of both of them.
So I'm just understanding, you wanna lower the clerk's salary?
That shouldn't be a
5,100?
part of the clerk's salary. Clerk's salary is specified in the ordinance itself as the clerk's
Yes.
salary. That says grant administrator.
Right, so
Period.
when, so who,
The
so
grant,
when,
the grant administrator, is a licensed administrator, and,
which I'm on level 401 right now.
but you're not. That's one thing. You're not a grant administrator.
I'm in the class for it, and this has been done for.
Are you paying for that on your own?
No, the town is,
Who gave you
Which is-
permission for that?
Jack,
The
at the
council?
beginning of the year. And the
Educational,
grant administrator's
educational
been on
funds?
here for years and years and years.
We gave the previous clerk permission. It was voted on by the council to do that at that particular time.
So then you have to recertify every year to be a grant administrator, and I'm not aware that that was done every year.
She was,
Not in the last few years.
well, then, but that don't correct the problem we have now either.
So what's the problem we have now? I guess I'm just curious.
You're not a grant administrator.
Okay.
We hired one, and we got this in
So
there.
then
We
you're,
can better use that money elsewhere.
okay.
My questions at the last meeting were, and I looked at previous years, and the council approved that money, administrating fee for, have an increase since 2015 from a $2,500 up to a $5,100.
It was 33.75 and 15.
What was it?
33.75.
33, I was thinking 25, my bad. And my understanding, I didn't know that I'm all for continuing education, so if any one of us needs some continuing education, including, the clerk's office, the clerk's office, council members, employees with any of the 3 other departments, for the longest time when I first sat on council, no matter what it was, whether it was $500 or $1,500, even though we have department, limits on money to spend without approval, we usually brought it before us and discussed it, and how much we were gonna spend on a class or a seminar or whatever that might be. I don't remember that happening, in the last 2.5 years compared to my first 2.5 years. With that, and I had asked, I'll ask the question,
We always ask.
yeah, he's showing me some information of, classes, EDC, some educational stuff here, seminars that were approved back in 2014. And I can remember that, and I think that's a good thing, so everybody knows where the money's going, even though there's no deception here, none at all whatsoever. They brought up a good cost savings that we're gonna be running with picking up somebody's different insurance program, and I believe that's a good thing. We look around and find how much money's going where. It's not really stated, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at that, as part of your income, and I didn't realize that.
Well, that's what Dan said when I first came.
Okay,
The planning BZA, the clerk treasurer and grant admin equals my pay.
okay.
That's what's been done in all the years that
You
they've
got any
been on there.
comments down on that end? I haven't heard anything from you yet, James?
My feeling is that, you know, she took the class and didn't have permission. I mean, if she wants to continue, she needs to pay for herself. I mean, she's not accepted that, and if she's not an administrator, then she don't need to get the money.
I always asked the question originally, and I brought this up in the work session as well about, and I remember asking the previous clerk this question of who wrote grants? How much did it cost to write grants? I heard the number $500 originally back then to write a grant. I don't know who we paid for writing those grants. It was, at that time, I don't think it was the previous clerk. She was talking about another situation for a grant to pay for something at that time. Since then, I've always been under the assumption that any grants that we have, whether it be whatever engineering company or grant administrator would bring those numbers to us and write those up.
I guess I have another comment too. You know, I've heard a lot about people can't get raises because we don't have money, employees can't get this, you know, for Kevin's say that Susan said that so-and-so can get a raise, and, you know, we're talking about people's money. And now we're sitting here talking about something that's not part of Susan's package, but yet is fighting for $5,100. You know, we got employees that are being said they can't get raises. And I referred to Kevin on that, because I've heard say, Susan says we can't get a raise or whatever. So I think there's a lot of confusion here of, you know, bring that up.
And my question to legal right now is revising the standard or the paperwork to the salary ordinance with deleting an item or modifying an item such as this. Is there any legal advisement, pro or con?
Well, I'm not sure I have a full grasp of the facts because I'm listening to it as it's going on here. It's either part of the clerk's salary, in which case you can't lower it. As you know, the statute provides that you'll fix compensation for the town board members, the chief of police, and the clerk treasurer by ordinance, and that the compensation for the elected town officials, which would be the board members and the clerk, cannot be changed in the year in which it's fixed, nor can it be reduced to a level lower than the prior year, which essentially means once you have given yourselves a rate of compensation, it's always going to be that, regardless of budget cuts or budget constraints. You can freeze it, I suppose, where you say, we're not going to give the board or the clerk more compensation, because once that's set again, you can't go back. On the other hand, if you're talking about the grant administrator position, if that is a separate position, if that is something that is not part of either the board's, an elected board member's duties or the clerk's duties, then that obviously can be lowered, and arguably may not even need to be set by ordinance, because again, although I don't think there's any community that does it this way, what the statute requires at a minimum is that you fix compensation for the board members, the police, the town marshal, and the clerk treasurer by ordinance, and then continues to say, and then the board shall fix reasonable compensation for the other employees. I'm paraphrasing, I think, but I think most communities like ours, though, have a salary ordinance that says, this is what we pay our electricians, this is what we pay, et cetera, et cetera. But those can be changed in the year that they're fixed. They can be reduced prior, reduced to a level lower than the prior year. So I think factually it depends where this grant administrator line item fits in. And I don't think I know factually the answer to that.
Okay.
Gathering tonight.
I guess my confusion is that this is, 3 years into this term, and this is the first time this has come up. So this has come up, we've done the salary ordinance at least 2 times during this term.
This term administration.
And now this is an issue, and that confuses me. I mean, if it was an issue now, why wasn't it an issue before?
I think the real issue came out when it started that we needed to compensate our employees somehow, some way. And for some reason, we were trying to find monies from every which direction. And the more you look at this, the more you think, well, is this necessary? Well, it's just like your insurance, which is a good point. I think we need to use that one as well. I think that's where it all originated. Whether it became now or 2 years ago, I don't think we looked at that 2 years ago then, as we are now.
So if I understand it, she has a certain salary that's set in the top up here.
That can't be changed.
Okay. But this down here is a whole new line item of grant administrator, which she is not a grant administrator, right?
I'm in my level 4, I'm getting.
But you're not a grant administrator yet.
Okay.
So that's not really part of the salary package that you were talking about. That can't be changed.
This came up in this past summer when we were dealing with the town marshal's pay. And I came across 2 cases which actually deal with clerk treasurer and board now that you mention it. So don't quote me on this, I'll need to go back and read the case, I'm going from my memory now, but I believe there's a case that's in which there was someone in the clerk's office who was also acting as the utility billing clerk, a separate position and a separate salary. And the issue was whether that formed part of the clerk treasurer statutory compensation or whether it was a separate position. I don't recall the holding in the case, so I'll have to go back and read that. If it's part of the clerk's statutory duties, then, if my reading of the statute's correct, I think the State Board of Accounts for audit purposes would look at that and say you can't reduce that. If it's a separate position, then that is something that obviously for budgetary reasons, every budget year stands alone and, things go up, things go down, your revenues go up, your revenues go down, your expenses go up, go down. That is something that could be changed.
Ed, right now, what I would like to do, is have you look at that, make sure that those are not conflicting legal issues. It seems to be that there's a majority of the board that would like to remove this grant administration. I believe I also said before we left the work session that, if you had any information, Susan, to let me know, replying to this, what your stance was on this. That, is it education, is it something coming out of your pocket, going into your pocket? I've also learned tonight that even though you understand this as part of your salary in this ordinance, and we have passed it for 2 years, and we're looking at the 3rd year, and we've actually passed it for previous years. It doesn't say clerk grant administration, so it kinda excludes it from that legal.
You have to look at the whole thing of how long has it been on the salary ordinance that the clerk is being paid that.
But
years.
For me, I think
I guess I'm-
what I need to know, and I don't mind doing this now, or I can start looking at it tomorrow, but is this a position for someone who is going to be applying for grants, writing grants, receiving the money and then administering it, similar to what we're familiar with when you hire a grant administrator, say Kenna? If that's what it's for, then I'm not sure that fits into the statutory duties.
But if it's on the other side,
When you look at the
Where it's
statutory
keeping
duty,
the-
it's not in there.
keeper of the records. and-
Well, I guess my next question would be, why would we pay both?
There you go.
So I was told when I came in by Mr. Wandersee, that there's the clerk treasurer line, there's the planning BZA, and then there's grant administrator. And you can't change the clerk treasurer, but you can do anything with the other throughout the year, so you can change it if necessary. That's what he told me when I came into office.
And it sounds like that was done with, is that correct? If you said it went from 3,000 or approximately 3,000 to 5,100?
But that was just in a regular salary ordinance. He says those two line items could change throughout the year, just like everybody else.
Cause I'm now dwelling on the information that legal brought up that earlier this year, and I think I even asked you earlier this year,
Stays within zero.
where does this money go to? What is it used for? And you told me that at that time that this was part of your money for your salary to grant administrate.
'Cause
The
there's a lot on this side, too.
the fine line that I'm seeing right now, and I definitely need you, Ed, to look over this as soon as possible. I don't expect it tonight,
Well,
but
No, I can give you my preliminary opinion based on what I'm hearing. If that's the conversation that the two of you had, I mean, that's consistent with that this is a separate position, which can be changed.
Well, my serious question still, seems to evolve around my head here is, number one, I'm not trying to take money from anybody, but number one, why will we pay Donna or Kent, their Kenna company, to write our grants, just like they just did, and then pay a grant administrator too?
Well, that's a policy question.
yeah, okay.
Well, and I guess I would add in there
Although,
too.
I see what you're saying.
In other positions, if the sewer people need to get a license, it's money's in there for them to get a license and get a raise. But they don't get that raise until they get their license. We're getting ready to talk about CDLs for drivers are gonna get a raise when they get their CDL. You know, we're sitting here talking about somebody getting paid $5,100, it's not even a grant writer.
So before the end of the year, I'll have the certification complete, so I guess I'm confused.
As I see it right now, with the majority, remove it, and, we can have further discussion or vote on it when we vote on the new, salary ordinance. We'll take a vote on that salary ordinance on the 27th. Any other questions, comments?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I would like to also see, on the second page of your paper, where it says, difference between with or without CDLs is up to 60 cents per hour. I'd like to see that at least go up to $1, if you would all, take a look at that.
Okay. Comments or questions on, Dan, on the dollar instead of 60 cents up to on the CDL?
And to get us town employees and keep them, I'm all for it.
Mark?
I have no comment.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to hear input from our town manager.
What do you think about the 60 cents versus the dollar, Mr. Slick?
I would like to see $1 increase for a CDL driver,
Up to,
up to.
okay. please change that from up to 60 cents per hour to up to $1 per hour as stated on the bottom of the salary ordinance. Also, there's another one here that I'm looking at, and there's never been one, and there's a question mark here still on this draft, and that says utility foreman. Again, I've always said that we're elected officials to do the legal legislation, and then there's hired individuals like the town manager. Your input on that, do you believe at this time that there needs to be a special utility foreman rate in statute?
I believe there does need to be a utility foreman, and to have a utility foreman, there would have to be a rate established.
Do you suggest a rate right now? Most of the rates here, and this is all public information, water assistant 11.16, water operator 13.50 to 19. What do you, and there's 4 or 5 more there, including groundsman, electrical, water, wastewater system, all that. Do you recommend a certain level on that, sir?
I would like to see something along where the groundsman's options are.
So similar to the ground options of 13.50 to 19. Does that number sound reasonable, unreasonable to you, Mark? Dan,
Yeah, and then I got one more.
go ahead, sir.
Did we change the wording in there for the police department where on their longevity pay?
Well, notice it says waiting on Ed Martin for verbiage.
I just wanna make sure that
Yeah, it's still waiting on him.
gets
Okay.
changed.
Now, that was something else, but what do you feel about the utility foreman? You're okay with that? Gary?
I'm okay with it, except for one item. I'm really stuck on this CDL information. And I believe, and this is just my opinion, I believe if we're gonna have a town manager operating with a CDL, I think his next man down should have one as well.
Does he have one right now?
No, he does not.
Are we inquiring him having one?
We're not requiring it.
No, I said, are we inquiring, meaning your decisions as town manager to require him to have one?
At this time, I don't feel that it's necessary. It would be a luxury, but I'm not feeling the necessity.
I think some of the other licenses might be more valuable at this point, like the water license and back up on some other issues.
Is he acquiring any other license to, advance himself forward into that situation?
He is working towards some of it at this time.
I would state along with, if we make this range of where that's at, that he would not advance in that financial situation until he went forward with further education, including, CDL. Is that agreeable by the board?
Yes.
You can give your comment, yes, no, I'm all for that.
I'm for it, but I'm concerned that there may be health issues that will prevent him from acquiring the CDL. And at that point, you're gonna have to decide what to do.
Okay. And that's your managerial decision. I have no issue with that. That's what you're hired to do. I mean, you've had this discussion 100 times. James, you were getting ready to say something?
Well, I would prefer to see, to get his water license. I think when we have to have duplicate of license, and he just stated that it's not necessary that he have a CDL at this point. I think it's something he needs to pursue eventually. But to say that he has to have a CDL to take his position,
No, I would just like to see him advance whatever, in all those fields, to back up 1 or 2 fields to be able
absolutely.
to make those decisions like you would make every day in your absence.
Absolutely.
Gary?
as long as, he's pursuing education, I don't have a problem with it.
So I'm all for, please change, put a utility foreman in there from 1350 to, what was the? 19, and then with that, I think he's, or that possible person or possible people should be in that range. If that's changed somewhere down the road with his decision of who does that. And, that they be able to further themselves, whether that be in any applications, electrical, water, wastewater, CDL, whatever that might be. And before we go on there as well, we had discussed maybe getting something legally wrote up, for reimbursement or time lapse if it's paid for, we pay for your CDL, that if you leave before 1 year or
Right.
2 years or something.
Really
so-
should be with any of the license.
Yeah, cause we pay for the wastewater license, the water license as well,
Maybe
so.
that's to be in the employee handbook on.
Yeah, and that's something that just kinda tacks onto this, it's
Okay.
not, has nothing to do with, the salary ordinance, just something I wanted to add to that.
Back around and make a comment on the longevity issue. I finally met with the chief of police, last week at your request to begin the discussion on that issue as well as the issue of compensatory time. And, I've made the suggestion to him and I've come to the conclusion, and it's similar to what you just discussed regarding the CDL and the employee handbook, that, rather than try to go through all of the police department's individual SOPs as they might relate to overtime, holiday pay, vacation pay, personal pay, longevity, overtime, compensatory time, and then have to come in and adopt those in by reference, in an ordinance, which is what you did globally with the employee handbook. You know, you have your employee handbook, and then you brought that all in as Title 35. I'm gonna be working with the chief and hopefully have it ready by the end, by the 27th, to simply incorporate all of those sections into Title 34, which is where you already deal with paid time off for the police department, so that way, and again, although those types of things aren't, well, in any event, so that when you make decisions to change things regarding longevity, holiday pay, vacation pay, whatever it is, you can just point to a specific section of the code and change that, rather than have to go through the little bit more tedious process of having the SOP rewritten at the departmental level, and then cherry pick that SOP and bring that in and incorporate by reference into an ordinance. So, that's where we're at on that. And I would agree that for the other issues regarding the CDL and those paybacks, that can be a matter of, now there again, you're gonna change a portion of your employee handbook, and we should reincorporate that by reference in an ordinance, but that does not need to be done as part of the salary ordinance.
Thank you.
I'd like to add something too. In the situation of this, the job, I'd like to see a board member get with Kevin and get with the employee that we're discussing this about. And then it needs to be stated to all the employees of the situation. I think, I would like to see a board member be part of that. Ultimately, he's responsible for the individual, but it's gotta be established across the board. And then my other question is, our budget, how many street employees does this budget include? Is it 10 employees, or 12 employees? What are we setting? Do you understand my question? I mean, how many, we get 7 employees now working on the street? 6?
We're trying to divide it up by the time they spend in the departments they're in.
Okay, so how many employees do we need to do the business of this city? Because I keep saying we don't have enough employees.
I wish I could answer that.
So what did we in the past?
Well, in 2013, we had 12 employees, which covered all the, all the utilities.
Do you think that 12 employees
This
can
is
do that?
This is just utilities. In 2014, we had 13. 2015, we had 12. And these were what numbers we had at the end of the year. 2016, we had 11. 2017, 9. And what I had from my record, which was just half of this year, 5.
So I guess my thing is this, we need to pick a number of employees that we need and give them permission to get those employees and establish in the budget. We've got a budget that range for $10 to $18 an hour, but I hear we can't afford that, we can't afford employees or whatever. So we need to establish how many employees we need for 2019 and put them in the budget. We may not get them next week, but
I asked you to remember when I come in, we had 5 employees. I'm still trying to get the feel on the exact number we need to function efficiently.
well, according to the last 5 years, 12 to 13
12
employees.
would be, I feel would be close to the magic number.
So
I don't know if we can do it with 9, I don't know if we can do it with 10.
can I say that we accept 12 employees and
Yeah, because typically, we tried to have a minimum of 3 in the wastewater and have one with the, each level of license, 3, 2, and 1. That was the goal, and we had that for a long time. And then the same way in water, we at least had 1 and 1 working on his level 1 license in water. So there was 2, that was their primary, job right there. And then the rest of them, we always had the 3 people on the trash truck, which basically only worked on Monday, Wednesday, and half a day on Thursday and Friday for trash. So we used them in other areas on Tuesday and the half days here and there. And then you had your street guys, and then electric, we always tried to have at least 2, 3 possible there.
So how many do we have right now?
Right now, we're looking at 9.
we have 9 employees on the street now.
Total
No, total.
trash, street, water, sewage, okay.
Total employees.
So, just to abruptly end this and move on with this, and so we've seen as high as 13 or 14 over the years, and as low as 5. You're at a 9. Alls I ask of you, and I think the board, I would hope the board would agree with this, find your efficiency rate at the lowest possible, financial possible, because at all times, we're looking for money anywhere. I don't agree with we need 14 or 15, and we're getting calls of inefficiency. But there again, I don't think we need to be at 6 or 7, and we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. And you would say that 7 financially is easy to support, and 14 is financially hard to support, is that correct?
Yeah, because there's a lot more factors than just hire as many as you want. You have to look at the revenue that's actually coming in for those utilities as well. If you wanna get them up to where they're supposed to be,
Efficiency,
be able to
work
have the
on your
money coming in to
efficiency
pay
for
for
us,
that.
let us know what number's magic for you. His question, very good question, where can we be, what do we need, where have we been in 22 years? Where are we gonna go in the next 10 years? Let's have like a 5 or 10 year plan to where you think that in 5 years we can be efficient enough with 9 or 10, and if a person needs to take their vacations or sick, we don't wanna have to do what we're getting ready to do here in the next couple items and had to push people's vacation, cause when you earn it, I think you deserve it, and if we can get somebody hired, then we need to get them hired to cover that. And I know that, council member and myself, Tucker, talked about designating a person and a backup person for each issue at that one time, didn't we, Mr. Tucker?
We did.
And I'm a firm believer in that. And there's times that if, even though the clerk's duties are doing the billing, I really don't want them out on the streets. But if there's a time that we have to have and it's necessary to let a utility worker back up for a day, I'm all right one day, maybe here or there, but I don't need that. We're running on 5 people and they're doing it all the time, and I don't want 12 people working here and we're spending too much money and not being efficient and going in the red instead of just at least being even. Any agreeable, disagreeable questions?
I think we could do a baseline of 12 employees. If we don't need them, we don't need them. We don't get them. But we need something in there to state, hey, we got all this work to do, and our work is not getting done. So.
Well, I would like to bring up too that we've got 3 guys spending 72 man-hours a week doing trash. And had we outsourced that, that would be 72 man-hours we have back towards now. I'm not saying we go
Cost to
back.
the public's gonna be the same, or more. And that's what we gotta look out for, is the public.
It was marginally more. We're talking $1 a month more per customer on trash.
I think the kickback on that is they would much rather pay people to be in town than pay somebody that lives over in Ohio to work over here collecting
And
the trash.
I understand that thinking, but
And we have no
we're gonna have
control.
people complaining about how the streets are not getting repaired
You get 12.
and how other things are not happening. When summer comes, who's gonna be cutting the grass? This is all stuff that those 3 guys for 72 man-hours could be doing.
I ask that you keep looking for efficiency. I know there's a couple employees in this room that have heard me talk about efficiency several times. It's a thing that we've gotta strive for. Granted, we're the public sector and not the private sector, but in the private sector, those jobs and things are going elsewhere. And I don't think that's gonna happen with our little, community situation here, but I don't wanna cut ourselves short, but I don't want us to overspend or over-regulate, and right now, I can't say the magic number's 14 or 7. I know 5 is not a magic number, and 15 is not a magic number, so let's work on that, continue that into the first of the year, discuss that. He's got a good concern, he's got a good concern. Let's be utilizing our money and our efficiency right, let's not cut ourselves short, like we have in the last year or two, and with the job market, unfortunately, it's really crippling, and I put a plug in there last week, not only for the town, but for the people I work with, and it's really, the job market's really competitive right now, and we really need to fit it, and that's with pay raises or great insurance costs like we have here in the town of Centerville, for the employees, so. With that, I would like to move on to the 2019 fuel rate. Would you like to speak on that, Mr. Slick?
I am working on putting specifications together to come up with a presentation to you for request for bid.
Could you think we could have that ready for the first of the year at the first council meeting? Or do we need to do that by the 27th?
27th is possible, I'd rather wait till the first of the year, this year I have time to compile.
Okay. Because there again, that's an efficiency thing of how much money we're going to spend. Okay, thank you. Clerk, the 2018-13, I'm looking for it, not finding it. You got a paper copy of that, please?
Yeah, I gave it to, the attorney to look at, and give it back to me.
No, not yet.
Cause he's still looking at it just to make sure the changes that we did have, cause I just added in the 1 utility worker and the police department.
Yeah, and I took a look at this, and this dovetails back into my earlier comment about the statutory changes, the changes to your ordinance for the police department that we made in the summer. So I'm reversing myself. I went back and did some research. I pulled all of the resolutions and all of the ordinances that I could find regarding these issues of, the police department's fringe benefits, knowing we were gonna have to work on that. Did that in preparation of my, before my meeting with the chief. But if you recall from our discussions in the summer, we not only had a discussion about the salary ordinance statute that we just discussed a few moments ago, but also the statute in Title V, which indicates that fringe benefits in the form of paid time off, and again, I'm paraphrasing here, must be in the form of an ordinance. So while we have certainly traditionally done that by resolution, this carryover of days at the end of the year by resolution, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the resolution that the clerk provided me. You could adopt that resolution tonight, but I would recommend we follow that up and codify it in the form of an ordinance, such that you don't get a comment from the State Board of Accounts when they perhaps, because, for instance, right now you have sick days and is it sick days or personal days, I'm sorry? Personal days.
Vacation.
Personal and vacation days right now are codified by ordinance. When you adopted your employee manual, you then incorporated that as Title 35 of your Code of Ordinances. Last summer, when we dealt with the police department's paid time off, you codified that in a change to part of Title 34. Here if you look at this resolution, what it says is the board is waiving a condition in that ordinance, which I think is a valid executive function of the board, but I wonder whether the State Board of Accounts would look at that and say, you've provided an additional fringe benefit of paid time off. In other words, the manual and the ordinance might say, I'm being arbitrary here, 5 days a year. And waiving this and carry over, now it's the equivalent of 8 days a year, let's say. And State Board of Accounts may look at that and say, well, those 3 days need to be in the form of an ordinance, whereas here we just have them in the form of a resolution. Rather nitpicky, but to sum it up, you could pass this resolution tonight, which would be your affirmation that you're committing to a future vote on an ordinance, presumably to pass that ordinance.
Or do you want us to change it to ordinance and bring it to the 27th?
That's the idea.
Do you just, instead of having it as a resolution,
If
you
we
want
do
us to
that,
change it to the?
on the 27th, we'd have to suspend the rules and regulations.
You would, if you wanted to introduce it and adopt it in the same
So that
meeting, and you'd need at least 4 of you here.
Carry over from the previous.
So if anyone's going away for Christmas vacation, that might throw one through sorts. However, this isn't something that needs to be done by December 31st either. It can be carried over. What
To
it
the
would,
first meeting of the year.
right, and what it would be, it kind of changes factually, you know, it goes from, again, I'm gonna be arbitrary here. I have 5 days, I get 5 days a year, I've used 2, I'm asking you to carry 3 more over. January 1, let's just say, I wake up as an employee of the town and I've accrued 5 more days for that year. I lost those 3 days I didn't use it, if they were use it or lose it. But then in January, you're declaring a bonus. It's a special ordinance, and you're declaring a bonus of 3 days for a particular employee. That has the net effect of you carried them over. Either way, as long as it's in the form of an ordinance, I think you're in compliance with that code section in Title V.
So we bring it
I-
first.
Well, no, I don't like to kick that can.
Do you want me to change it to ordinance?
I
and
want to
bring it
change
to
the ordinance and
27th?
suspend the rules and regulations on the 27th, or on the 27th. That way they're reassured that whether it be the police department and or the one town employee knows that those days, you know, I know that these people know my word's good and paperwork's good, but
Well, a resolution tonight would do that, it just wouldn't have the force of law until you adopt the ordinance.
then I would adopt the resolution tonight and adopt the ordinance on the 27th.
I just didn't upload it because he hadn't finished, never got it back to me. So do
That's-
you,
Well, I for one can't promise that you'll have 4 people here, or that they'll all be unanimous in
I
their
think
vote.
it's actually
Well, but we go ahead and pass the resolution.
unanimous of all members, whether they're there or not.
All members present to suspend the rules, but to introduce and adopt,
You
at
have to
one
have,
meeting, you need 4 out of 5 votes.
do you have an issue with the 27th meeting? I thought I'd run to Vegas over the holidays, but I was joking, and that's probably just a joke, so. You probably won't be. Gary, you're known for forgetting a little bit. Nothing to do with your age or anything.
I'll be here.
Do you want me to fix it and then bring it to the 27th
Um,
then? Then
Ye-
change it to
yeah.
ordinance?
But just to be on the safe side, can we adopt that
You
resolution?
can adopt the resolution,
That's-
that's just
that's what I'd
letting the
like to
employee
do.
know this is something
And
you're
then-
resolved to do, but it's
and then
not
bring
gonna,
that
I don't think it's
So
gonna
do both
confer
of
the benefit
Yeah.
until
Do both.
it's
Can
codified.
I have one of your copies to read by
And
title
I think that
only?
codification
the
could
one.
go through 3 readings.
Yeah, either one, I'll give it
So I'll
right
have
back
to
to you.
get the other two and we'll have you sign the other two at the next meeting, is that okay?
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
because
Okay,
we'll do
that
the
way it's
ordinance,
done, okay,
then
let me,
the
switch
other
this here.
So with that, we know we're headed with this, the ordinance on the 27th. And then, we're in following in the first year, God forbid something happens to one of us other than James. Could be me, I'm not joking, really. So with that, I'd like to read this resolution tonight of 2018-13 by title only. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion.
Motion by Dan and Gary, do I hear a second? Second by James, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, so carried. Resolution number 2018-13, a resolution of the town council of the town of Centerville, Indiana, to carry over required personal and vacation days for the police department, and stated with that, the one town employee. Please add that to that for the, is that
It
on
says
the
it in
record
it.
there?
It's in there.
It's in the sublet, so
Yeah, I'll-
just to reassure that one town employee, if they're present, they know that's gonna happen. All those in favor say aye. We already did that, yeah, my bad.
I'll get it this way.
Losing the crowd. Anything other under old business, Dan? Anything else to talk to Mark? No. James? Gary?
Yes, how are we doing on
Let's say, or what?
now I'll wait for her to get down there, but, how are we doing on changing the water penalty on our billing?
The penalty's already been changed and it's on there, a line item on the front. I'm just still pulling all the records.
Okay,
So you can make the adjustments, is that what you'll do? And
Yeah, I have to.
I know
put in-
that's not an overnight thing, it
Oh,
might
no.
take you a month,
Maybe a
2
year.
months, yeah.
It's gonna take just a little bit, but then
Okay.
when we do that, we'll have a note in the bill, and then we'll make sure the adjustment shows on the invoice.
thank you.
We're gonna use like a little sticker or something we discussed, or,
It's on the front of the bill. It's on a line on the front of the bill, down at the bottom.
he was the one that asked the question, I'm just kinda,
It's a water, I think it's a water penalty.
how'd we do that?
Yeah.
I mean, you said you had them all printed out, how you,
That bottom section is lines that we can add notes.
Right here.
That's when we do the dates that the meters were
2%
read, the,
first $3, then 3%.
so you just run that through your printer anyways to add certain cost numbers and,
yeah, the pre-printed is the top and the back of the bill, and then the, perforation is what we
Okay.
get.
I know you said that might be some issue of how you were gonna do that.
As long as we don't have a lot of notes to put on there, cause there's only a certain number of lines that we have to put on that bottom of the invoice with notes.
Okey-doke. Anything other legal? Under old business, clerk?
Not under old.
Okay. With new business, there was 1 or 2 items that I wanna do, but, the town manager came up and asked some questions about some new item business, so would you like to speak on that real quick?
As you know, our ton dump truck was taken out of service several months ago. And I'm requesting up to $30,000 out of NVH to replace the truck.
That money's there,
That money is there.
and that is, over the,
That's one time.
Yes.
that money is over the 25,000, which the department head. So I would entertain a motion that we authorize, authorize you get the bids out. And then we'll go from there, cause that's over that dollar amount, is that correct?
It's in your small purchase, but I think
Yeah.
best practice would be to at least get
Some bids out. So let's authorize him to, and the clerk to get some paperwork out on bids. Do I hear a motion on
So
that?
moved. Okay, go ahead.
Motion by Mark, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Gary, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions, so carried.
Okay. Our locating machine has stopped working. So we're gonna be spending around $4,000 to replace it with the used locator, so we can locate our electric and water as it comes in.
What are we doing in the meanwhile?
We're doing the best we can. We've borrowed Cambridge Cities for a couple days to do some locates.
How long does it take you to get one of these devices?
Depending on where I can find the cheapest one and the shipping.
Amazon.
We're looking at, by the end of the year, at the latest.
Okay,
Well, what's the difference in cost between a new locator and a used?
From what I've run across so far, we're 10 to 11,000 difference in the new and the used.
The other one wouldn't find like a sewer line.
The question I would have if you get it used would be, parts.
Parts will be available. We're going with the updated model that USI is using right now on all their locates.
other questions or comments? No? You guys down there, no?
Well, we definitely need one.
A motion to authorize to purchase another locating unit. Do I hear, to entertain a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Gary, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by James, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions, so carried. Any other new business on the board? James?
Can I throw one more thing?
Oh, yep, go ahead. Did you tell me earlier and I didn't listen or something? Go right ahead. I thought you had two items.
I could have a whole list.
That's all right.
On our community crossing grant, I am requesting $4,500 and the ability to sign an agreement with Choice One to take care of construction bidding and grant administration for the project.
That was the 4 streets that you want to have.
That is the streets that's being done with the community crossings. We're-
And that was not part of the first deal or?
No.
Just 4th Street being.
4 streets.
Four
streets.
Eliason,
Ash.
Water, Ash, Shore.
I make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Mark, second by Gary, have choice one, do this, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, so carried.
Just a minute. I want to authorize, with your permission, Mr. Slick to buy another dumpster that's in very desperate need. It's like $650 or $80, something like that. The one that we have down at the sewage plant. the bottom fell out.
Okay,
$583.
that's under small purchase policy, no problem, but he's asking for the approval from the board. Do I hear a motion from the approval on the board to buy that dumpster?
Make the motion.
Motion by Dan, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mark, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, so carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, James? Gary?
Yes, sir.
Mark? Dan? Legal? Clerk? With that, before I start something here in just a second, I wanna say, 5 years of serving this community. It's been my pleasure of serving as the town council president for the last year. There's been some struggles that have been dealt with for the last couple years, and I've accomplished some of what I thought I could accomplish. I have not accomplished all of what I thought I was going to accomplish. With staying as professional as I can, knowing the good Lord and my mother's looking over me right now and what she taught me as a young man to grow up with, I have no further comment on a lot of that. With that, I would like to open the floor for election of nominations of officers for 2019.
Mr. President,
Yes, Vice President.
before you go much further, I'd like to just bring out a couple things here. Under your command, under your watch, number one, we've had the firehouse, the new one, activated. We've got number two, a CSO project in the midst. Number three, a stormwater project just started. And we've also brought a new town manager on board. So, I'm number one, saying thank you for the year, well done. Mr. President,
Yes, Vice President.
with that being said, I'd like to nominate Dan to step up. I know you're wanting to slow down, but I think, I'd like to have you step up and take over the president's box.
There's been a motion and a nomination for Dan to be president. Do I hear a second? Second by James. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Opposed. Abstentions? Let the record note, 4 ayes, 1 opposed, so appointed. With that, Vice President, entertain a motion for Vice President. Do I hear a motion for Vice President?
Make a motion that Gary stays as vice president.
I have a motion for Gary to be Vice President. I have a second by James. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. All ayes. Looking forward to forwarding the town of Centerville. Again, I can't thank the employees enough, the volunteers of this town, the community involvement. We have several people that show up to every meeting. If they don't mind me pointing out, Mr. Lawson, you're always here at the planning commission meetings and other meetings, and you work with the Main Street. We've got some things going on with Main Street. Our police department, our fire department, our new town manager. I've always been one to look for a total involvement environment. And there's things we're gonna find what we need to deal with. We need to look for the suggestions and the solutions and the inputs to forward the community. With that, I'm gonna close new business and start with department reports. Building Commissioner?
Commissioner,
Yes, sir.
I just want to say it's been an honor and privilege to sit on this board. but I also wanna say that every person that either sits up here or works in this office or works on the streets, fire department, every person that is part of this city is important. And every one of you is needed. And if each one would do their job, we would run smoothly. We're all in this on the same team. And you know, and I appreciate the hard work. We all just need to kind of come together. So I just wanted to share.
Thank you. Anything else before I close again? Okay. Building department report, building commissioner.
You all have the report, there's 2 building permits, 1 roof permit, 4 electric permits, 1 mechanical permit, 1 fence permit, and 2 tree trim permits for a total of 11, that's $602. I know there's been a few inquiries and questions concerning the construction out in the subdivision in the Sunset View, but the 15 new homes are moving forward. All the foundations are in. They'll be pouring 8 floors tomorrow. So then they will be moving forward with the framing of the, they got a pretty tight schedule, so they're moving forward pretty rapidly out there. The wastewater construction project is pretty much kind of back on schedule. We had a delay for a while, but we're making progress now. The line, McMinn Road's closed. It'll take a little more time getting across the road, a little more tedious with all the fiber optics, underground phone lines, gas lines, and so forth. So they were hoping this week to get all the way across and make the crossing of the Crown Creek. But right now with the rain forecast for the latter part of the week, they may not get it across the stream this week. So we have a progress meeting Thursday. Kevin and I are keeping a close eye on everything. So is that any questions?
No, I might add, with things picking up, new businesses in Wayne County, and I might, shoot out, Blue Buffalo being here, and hopefully that'll help fill these homes and some of these other businesses. We hope forward on with that. Thanks for pulling extra job, checking on these folks and making sure things are built right. We appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Along with that, we had discussed earlier, and when I talked to the town manager, McMahon there, we're gonna be closed for a few more days due to some complications, and hopefully within a week or 2, things head upstream instead of downstream, and we get that road back open for safety concerns as well as for, residential convenience, so. Okay. Police department, please.
Hopefully everyone received my report for the month of November 2018. Just a few things I wanted to mention. If you weren't aware, we had closed down Crown Creek Saturday, and we had our emergency vehicle operations course training there, where we had the Wayne County Sheriff's Department was over, Fountain City showed up, of course all of our guys. I think there's probably a couple more that was still in there. Our instructor for that was the sheriff-elect of Rush County, Alan Rice, which is also Adam Buckley's stepdad. So I want to really thank him for stepping up and taking care of that for us. We also enjoyed a great fellowship with the fire department again at our Christmas dinner, for those of you that weren't there this past Sunday. At that, we usually do our program for awards and things like that at the end of the year. And during that time, Officer Matt Wright from my department, he was awarded with Officer of the Year for 2018. I'd like to recognize him as that as well. And then, if you weren't aware, we received a donation of weight equipment, training equipment, stuff from the school. The wellness center was getting all new equipment up there, and they graciously donated their old stuff to us and the fire department. So our whole upstairs has kind of been revamped a little bit. We're still in the process of doing that, but a couple of my guys that are really religious about going to the gym have actually started giving up their gym membership because we have our own gymnasium upstairs now where we can work out. We have complete equipment and stuff up there. And Mr. Holbert actually stopped by and he got involved right in the middle of it and helped carry some of it up. Probably the worst two pieces of it all to get up
I don't
there.
even know how we got it up there.
It was a tight squeeze, but we got it up there, it's not coming back out. But now both ends of the upstairs, and including the hallway, have equipment out. If you'd like to come out and see that sometime, just give me a shout.
Or use it?
Maybe.
Okay.
Anyway, I think that's it for the police department. Any questions or anything from us?
Thank you. Fire Department, Chief Spears.
We're still working on getting equipment stuff in for our new truck, so hopefully we'll have it up and in service before long. Same way with the building, we did run into a little snag with our heating system out there. We had to call a company from Indianapolis, come in and refurb it. So we're working on getting that up and running. So, and then I think if, Ed didn't mention it, but we're gonna be doing the Christmas food delivery here probably in the next week or so. So,
You might add how many families you did at Thanksgiving and
45 for Thanksgiving, so. Like you said the other night, hopefully we'll be able to do that many for Christmas, so. The only other things I got, I mentioned it last week, but be sure and check your smoke detectors. It's that time of the year for supplemental heat and that kind of thing, and, we had one major fire, that saved a family of 3 3/4, one night because their smoke detector was working, and then there was another family of 6 that passed away the same night that did not have smoke detectors. So do that, and if you drove by the station since Sunday, you'll see our nice little note on the board out there, but I think it says, water your Christmas tree so we don't have to, so. Not that we're gonna come and water it, but we don't wanna come visit your house either, so. I think that's all I got.
I got a question.
yeah, go ahead.
Did you get your water line fixed?
Yes,
Good.
yes, it's all up and running thanks to the
Good.
town employees and
Remember you had a water line?
coolies.
Just a question, when we took care of the videos on the monitors, Ed, is there any monitors not being used once you did that? Because I know the fire department needs a monitor because I guess you moved one to the other one.
Oh.
I didn't know if we had access, had an extra one or
I
not.
haven't actually made it down to the city building, but I'm not sure if the one
Yeah, we're just gonna have a TV in our training room. We stole it,
If one's
put out the
available.
other
Yeah,
building.
Kevin's would be, but that's, you guys.
Did you have a problem if they took that and give it to the fire department? They could use it?
Department heads can work along with each other
Okay.
and figure out what goes where and stay cost efficient as possible with that.
He uses our training room for his training safety needs, so.
Okay. Utility manager, you're up next.
Well, I hope you all seen the paving projects were completed for this year. We milled and paved Spruce from US 40 to School, West Plum from Morton to Spruce, and we filled all the cutouts that were left in town. We're still patching potholes. We had 2 ice events that we did have to go out and sand, try to make the road safe for everybody. Water department, we're working routine maintenance. Weather permitting, we're still trying to replace some meters to get changed over to radio reads. Hopefully, the rest of this week when it warms up, we can get back to that. It's just been a little cold here lately. I'm waiting to hear from Coolies on the replacement of the fire hydrant at the rest area. They should be in contact this week or the first of next to schedule that. And I think Jeff's updated you on everything going on at the wastewater plant with the SCADA and the phosphorus. Just November the 15th, we had a power outage due to ice, which affected the majority of the town. We got that all back up and running, what I consider to be relatively good time, given the conditions. And part of the holdup was waiting on Duke to supply us again. We had 5 other power outages due to blown fuses. We're replacing streetlights as we can. We have hired 3 new full-time employees in the past month, trying to work on the balance of what the magic number will be. Once they're trained and moving, we'll be a step closer to finding that out. Any questions?
Question. Hydrants flushed, where are we at?
We flushed a few this year, not what we really needed to, but given the weather, we're pretty much done with that for the year.
So what'd you find out about the leaf back? We had a gentleman here last week, who was willing to donate some engine
Oh,
oil.
Mr. Combs.
We haven't really had time to tear into it to find out what we need. He knows what we have. That's been about the end of the contact with that. We are picking up leaves, a skid loader and trash truck right now. We'll probably finish the year out with that. Cambridge was to call me when they were done with theirs so we can borrow it. But we will probably be finished before they get done this year.
On the electric, you know, I know you got a copy, which we need to approve.
I was gonna bring that up. The
Now,
maintenance.
that hadn't changed from last year, so we just need to, I'll make a motion to go ahead and accept that. That's on the, maintenance and material.
What this is, the maintenance material on the electrical meters stays the same, is that correct? And Dan entertains a motion to approve this to next year's expenditures. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Gary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions, so carried. I'll sign this under town approval.
Yeah, and then there's the envelope.
And the envelope that it goes back in, I'll turn this over to all the other information to the clerk.
Got the-
Which do you want me to sign, one or the other, or does it, is yours, is it, yeah, I need to, or both?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
They should both be the same.
Is there anything else that you know of there
Yes.
for you?
Yes. Mr. Slick, you've done a fine job. Keep it up. For a new town manager, you came in with your hands full. So just keep at it, you'll get there.
I hope someday.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Okay, if that's all with the utility manager, we will, clerk treasurer, do you got any other business other than, look like you had a copy of this, you got anything else? Attorney, anything else to add to tonight's comments, questions, anything? Okay, again, 3 months ago, I, kinda took it on myself. There was some people feeling like they weren't being heard, and I asked everybody to stay to a stated line on it, and I'll continue that, through the end of my presidency. I'll take some comments and questions, keep them brief and short, if you have any, and then we'll address them, if not tonight, as we go through with our town business. Anybody in the front row got any questions or comments? Second row, third row, fourth row, back row. Thank you. Before I close the meeting, I got some announcements. There'll be no planning commission meeting in 2018 December meeting, typically on a Thursday at the end of the month. There's been a lot going on there thank the other two board members that attend that with myself.